Christi here with Little Salty Homesteader. Welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome into my office today because it is raining outside. And what I wanted to talk to you about today is actually something that I want to start doing monthly going forward for all of us North Texas gardeners, especially here in Collin County, and that is going to be a monthly task list. So today's list is going to be for the month of September. Now, I live outside of Wiley in Collin County, so the list that I provide today should apply to most of the folks around this area. I'm not going to give specific dates for things because I think a general list would be more helpful for a lot more people around the area compared to like just my neighborhood or my town or what have you. So if you're outside of Collin County, hopefully this is still useful for you and you're able to apply most of this list to within your own garden. But I thought it would be a good idea to have these sort of monthly task list things going forward to kind of help anybody who struggles with, okay, what do I do in my garden now? Because even though this is my 5th year gardening, I still kind of have trouble with that. So I have created this list today using 4 different sources. I created a bit of a condensed list because it does get kind of overwhelming trying to determine who to listen to. So I chose the things that appeared on multiple sources and not just one source, so to speak. So the first source that I looked at was this Neil Sperry's Lone Star Gardening, and this is a fantastic source for any gardener in Texas, especially in North Texas. Neil Sperry lives in McKinney, Texas, which is also in Collin County. He has a plethora of knowledge on anything from grass to your fruit trees, and he has a lot of insight into like localized pests and diseases and all of those different things. So if you're wanting a good source to kind of read whenever it's rainy or icky out, this would be a good one for you. The second source that I took a look at was Dallas Garden School. She is a master gardener in Dallas and I subscribe to her newsletter. So she sent me her September checklist, which had a lot of stuff that matched my September to-do list, so to speak. So it made me feel really good that I was kind of mostly in line with her. And then the third source was North Haven Gardens, which is a beautiful nursery in Dallas, Texas. They sell a lot of native plants. So if you're wanting to plant like native perennial space, go check them out. And then the last source was my own seedtime.us account. The way that the seedtime.us account works is whenever you create your free account, you enter in your zip code and it's going to generate your planting calendar based upon that zip code. Now I totally understand that there's some, microclimate things that may happen, so you can go in and physically adjust dates for things if you feel like maybe it wasn't 100% accurate, but so far it has been pretty good for me. So whenever I started creating my garden, I just entered in the crops that I was growing and it calculated when to start the seeds, when to direct sow the seeds, when to transplant the seeds, when I can expect to start harvesting things. It's been a fantastic sort of stress reliever for me. So the link is in the description box if you wanted to go check out seedtime.us. Like I was saying, they do have a free version that you can play around with, see if it's something that works for you. So that's the sources that I use to create this list. And again, a lot of this stuff will pertain to Collin County, but you should be able to follow most of it for your area, whether you're further north, south, east, or west than where we are at. North, your stuff may have been planted or transplanted out a little bit earlier, and if you're south, perhaps a little bit later, but kind of along the east and west, it should be relatively similar. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to talk about is 2 items that you might want to go ahead and get purchased to prepare for the October planting month. So those two things are going to be your seed garlic and onion seeds if you're wanting to grow both of those things in your vegetable garden. So seed garlic, that's essentially going to be the garlic cloves. And in North Texas, you can grow both the soft neck types and the hard neck types. The soft neck is going to be a little bit a little bit longer lasting in storage, but the hard neck, from what I was reading, a lot of those varieties are a little bit more flavorful. So essentially, if you plant a whole ton of hard neck and it starts to kind of, you know, reach the end of its life, its storage life before you've used it all up, you can dehydrate it and use it for your garlic powder perfectly fine. Like it's still going to be usable in that form. So don't feel like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I will be able to use it all before it goes bad, so I better plant only all soft neck. Go ahead and experiment, try a little bit of each, see what works for you in your garden, in your growing space. And then you want to go ahead and get it now because it needs to chill in your refrigerator for a good month before you plant it out in your growing space. So you want to make sure that you leave yourself enough time for that refrigeration period before it's time to plant it. It gets planted mid-October to mid-November. So you have about a month to get it planted in. So if it takes a little bit of time to get to you, then that's perfectly fine. For seed garlic, you can purchase it from the grocery store. You don't need to go find like a specialized seller or anything. I will say you may not necessarily know what type of garlic it is that you're getting from the grocery store, so just be aware of that. But unless it's like elephant garlic, obviously you're gonna know that that's elephant garlic, which isn't technically a true garlic. I believe it's in the leek family, but it still will grow here in North Texas just fine. If you wanted to procure it from an online source so that you know exactly what types you're getting, there's a ton of them out there. I purchased mine from Mad River Garlic Growers. They're certainly not the only ones. I just liked the varieties that they had, and the price was on par with most other garlic sellers. You can get garlic from Haas Tools, Hudson Valley Seed Company, Baker Creek, I believe, even has garlic. In my gardener, probably Johnny's. I didn't check there, to be quite honest. There are a ton of options online. I am sure that some local nurseries will also have garlic. Please don't quote me on that because I've never tried to get it from a local nursery. But I mean, it's worth checking out. Maybe just call them up and say, hey, do you have seed garlic? They'll tell you. Feed stores maybe have it if they have like an agricultural section where they sell other types of seeds. Just kind of, if you're wanting to get local like that, just call around before you go in. And then the other thing that you're going to want to purchase is onion seeds. So if you're wanting to grow your onions completely by seed and not buy the onion sets to transplant out, go ahead and get your seeds now, because those are going to be started at the end of October. So just to make sure you get the ones that you want that are in stock, get them ordered now. Onion seeds, their shelf life tends to be a little bit shorter than other vegetable seed varieties. So if you have seeds that might be a couple of years old, it might be a good idea to go ahead and refresh those with new ones. But that's the only two things on the purchase list for September, so that's pretty good. A little bit wallet friendly there. For the stuff that you can plant by seed outdoors, there are quite a few different leafy greens that you can direct sow the seeds for, starting with lettuce, and then there's spinach, kale, and then your Swiss chard varieties. And then you can also plant a lot of root vegetables in September, including radishes, beets, carrots, and turnips. So September is kind of the lettuce, turnip, the beet month, if you think about it. I already have all of my carrots planted, but you are not too late. You certainly still have time, and with the break in the temperatures, you'll probably have really good germination with those carrots as well. I have some varieties of radishes and beets going in this week, and then the rest will go in next week. Also turnips this week and next week. So I'm getting those things in the next couple of weeks. And then you can also direct sow your snap peas, the kind that you use in stir fries, and you can get a round of bush beans growing as well because they're very fast growing. Cucumbers, this one I only saw on the North Haven Gardens list, so I'm not 100% sure if cucumbers will actually come to fruition before the first frost. The average first frost date for my area, my zip code, is November 15th. So double check that before you get those cucumber seeds in. And also double check the days to harvest on your cucumber varieties on the back of the seed packets. I would say if it's around 45 to 50 days, go ahead and get them in, and you should be able to get some cucumbers before the frost comes. Otherwise, just hold off until spring. One more root vegetable that you can go ahead and direct sow seeds for is parsnips. I have not personally grown parsnips, so I don't even know what their flavor profile is or anything, but I do know that a lot of people do like to grow them. So you can direct sow them in September. If you're wanting to grow any sort of flowers during the cooler months, what can be direct seeded right now is cold hardy annual flowers like pansies and violas. This is just the seeds. Do not transplant started plants until September. And then you'll also want to direct sow your California poppy seeds in your flower beds now, as well as any sort of wildflower seeds. And then especially if you're wanting like a patch of bluebonnets, you'll want to get those seeds down now. Now, as far as the bluebonnet seeds go, you'll want to scarify those seeds, meaning you're going to want to rough up the outside of the seed to make it easier for it to germinate, because those seeds, from what I understand, do not germinate very well. So you're just kind of helping to improve that germination a bit. That's a lot of stuff that could be direct sown outdoors this month, and that's really exciting. Like, you can really feed your family a lot of food just with those few things that can go in the garden right now. There's also some things that you can start by seed indoors, much like the stuff that's growing right here that you probably can't see because it's a little bit lower there on the camera. So some things that you can start indoors is going to be, you can start some of your lettuce and spinach if you would rather transplant that out once it cools down a little bit more. You can also start your bok choy varieties by seed indoors. Any sort of cold hardy annual cut flowers like the pansies and violas, you can start those indoors to be transplanted out in October. And then one more brassica variety that's going to be started in September is going to be the kohlrabi, which is kind of like a weird cross between a broccoli and a turnip. I don't know, it looks kind of like an alien. It's not under the ground, it's completely on the ground, and it's round, and all the leaves come off of the round bulb part. And it looks really foreign and bizarre, but it tastes really good whenever it's roasted with olive oil and salt and pepper and, you know, seasonings and things. It's really delicious. It just looks really bizarre. I like growing it because it does look so bizarre, but it is also a really great fall and winter vegetable. So if you have started seeds already indoors, again, like these guys right here, a lot of those can go outdoors during the month of September, including any remaining broccoli, cabbage, and cauliflower starts that you may have. If you don't have the starts, look around your local nurseries to see. They should start setting them out pretty soon, and then you can grab them and transplant them out. Now, I will say that try to find like 6-packs or maybe varieties that have 2 or 3 plants within one little container so that you get more of your money's worth, because $4 or $5 for one broccoli started plant whenever you can buy the broccoli at the grocery store for much less expensive, you kind of have to weigh that out compared to your wallet. But you can certainly buy started plants and then transplant those out. You can also transplant started lettuce, kale, Swiss chard, collard greens, and mustard greens. And then if you started any perennial varieties like Echinacea or Gaillardia, those perennial flowers, those will be transplanted out into the garden this month. And then a lot of annual flowers like Marigolds, Zinnias, Petunias, Celosia, Coleus, mums, and then if you have any sort of ornamental peppers, that would be like the Chinese 5-color pepper, where it's kind of a compact bush variety and it has all these different colors of peppers growing on it. Those would be considered an ornamental pepper. I know that HEB had a ton sitting by the door going into the store the other day, so if you want something like that to kind of jazz up your space, you can certainly go buy it to transplant it in. And then the last section of the task list for September is going to be the maintenance tasks. Not necessarily the most exciting part of this list, but it's certainly one of the most important. So the first thing that you're going to want to do in terms of maintenance within your garden is, now that the temps have cooled down quite a bit and it's kind of tolerable to be outside now, you want to go out and you want to prune off any sick, dead, diseased, pest infested, icky stems and branches off of all of your plants that you're trying to keep alive. So as an example, I have 5 or 6 tomato plants still left in my garden from the spring and summer that I have just been kind of pushing to survive through the 106-degree temperatures to see if I could get a fall flush of tomatoes. Now, spider mites are really bad in North Texas, so I recently had to prune off a ton of branches that were just decimated completely by spider mites, and that's totally okay. There's still a ton of green, healthy life left on the plants, so I'm totally not worried about it. So any sort of icky, yucky branches, go ahead and prune those off of tomatoes, peppers, zucchini, whatever you may have growing in your garden that you're trying to get a fall flush of before that first frost comes and wipes them out. You are going to want to go ahead and replenish your mulch within your garden, whether you have in-ground raised beds or containers. I have all 3, so I will need to mulch all 3. My vegetable garden is mostly in raised beds. Those all have straw mulch, so I will need to add additional straw to build it back up to that 3 inches deep. And then my containers will also need straw added, and then my in-ground flower bed, I will need to get some more cedar mulch to kind of thicken that up a little bit too. Now, you don't want to cover any direct seeded seeds with the mulch just yet. So you'll kind of like leave a space around those until those seedlings are a good 4 to 6 inches tall, and then you'll push that mulch around those little seedlings. Does that make sense? Okay. So another thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to, if you have an automatic irrigation system, you're going to want to adjust the watering schedule. Now that it is hopefully no longer going to be 106 degrees, you will be watering quite a bit less. Now, this one is going to take a little bit of kind of playing around to find the right watering levels, because just because the temperatures cool down doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to rain more, aside from this past weekend where it has rained every day for 5 days. You're going to want to make it so that it's watering enough to keep the soil levels moist, but not watering so much that it's waterlogged, and not watering so infrequently that it dries out completely. So you're gonna have to kind of play around with it until you get that watering schedule adjusted just right. But you will be watering less because we're finally in cooler temps. The sun is shining fewer hours per day and so on. So that's another thing you want to take care of this month. Another thing, now that it has cooled down quite a bit, if you weren't able to do much maintenance in your garden in August, you may have noticed that weeds have crept into your growing spaces. My flower bed, usually around this time of year, is pretty covered in Bermuda grass and nutsedge. It is much better this year because I did have a lot of cedar mulch and it's pretty intensely planted with a lot of plants, but there still is some nutsedge creeping in. So On my weekly schedule for the month of September, I am putting in 30-minute time blocks per week to go out and handle those weeds. It may not take the full 30 minutes to get them all out, but I want to make sure that I'm getting rid of them before it becomes an overwhelming mess. If it already is an overwhelming mess for you, maybe you spend 10 minutes a day to kind of take it back over. But at any rate, you need to incorporate that weed removal time within your schedule to go ahead and get those taken care of while the temperatures are nice. A couple of other maintenance tasks that you can do that are relatively, not the most exciting things, but super important. One, you're gonna wanna prune your trees. We have a crepe myrtle tree in our front yard. I actually don't like crepe myrtle trees. Their seeds drop everywhere, and then I have seedlings pop up everywhere, and I am just constantly walking around all summer and fall cutting off little seedlings that just keep sprouting. It's impossible to get rid of them. But there are some branches on the tree that are encroaching on our house, and they're also completely shading out our yard where some grass isn't able to grow there. So this month we're going to prune that tree, get it a little bit thinned out so some more sunlight comes through, and get those branches off of the house so in a bad storm or something, those branches don't destroy our roof. The other thing that you're going to want to do is if you have any sort of perennial flowers growing within your growing spaces like Echinacea, Gaillardia, salvias, any of those perennial things, you're going to want to go out and deadhead any icky, dead, spent flowers. Go ahead and cut those off. The last two maintenance tasks are super important for your vegetable garden. The first one is going to be fertilizing. This is going to be a great time for you to fertilize all of your vegetables, whether you are transplanting things in or you are still managing the stuff that you planted in the spring and summer, like your tomatoes, peppers, okra, squash, cucumbers, those things. Go ahead and apply whatever your favorite fertilizer is to all of those plants. Right now I have a Dr. Earth's all-purpose vegetable fertilizer and earthworm castings. I got my tomatoes done the other day whenever I was pruning, but I need to go through and get the rest of my garden as well with both of those fertilizers. That's going to help those fall fruits set. It's going to help the plants continue to have healthy root growth, leaf growth, all of those important things in order to then provide you with food. And then all those transplants that you're transplanting in, it's going to help give them the nutrients that they need to get a good start before the freezing temperatures roll in November. And then the last thing that you're going to want to do, this one is it's pretty important. So as you're transplanting out your brassicas, like your broccoli, your cauliflower, your cabbages, your Brussels sprouts, your collard greens, your kales, you may see some little teeny tiny green caterpillars appear. Those are from the cabbage moth. Now the cabbage moth itself is really cute and really fluttery. It's a little white moth with black spots on its wings. It is a pollinator of sorts, but its caterpillars will completely decimate your brassica crops. So you have a few ways to manage this if you start to see that this is a concern. So the first one would be prevention, of course. So whenever you transplant your brassica crops into your growing space, you can immediately cover that growing space with some sort of insect netting. Now insect netting looks a lot like tulle, the frilly fabric that is in wedding dresses and such, but you can build a structure with PVC pipe or 2x4s or whatever you want to use that's like that. Put that insect netting over it, and that will prevent the cabbage moth from being able to lay its eggs on your brassica plants. If you are like me and you are planting your fall garden while you still have the summer garden planted, so you're just kind of sticking stuff where there's space, so you have fully mature plants and little baby plants, you may not be able to manage insect netting. So at this point, it becomes maintaining rather than preventing. So one thing that you can do is go out and physically hand pick off any caterpillars and or eggs that you see. This can be challenging if you have a very large garden or you have a very large cabbage moth issue. There is a spray that you can use. It is called Beet. I'm not going to pretend to even know how to pronounce the full name of it, Bacillus thuringiensis or something like that. Okay, I did pretend. But that is essentially an organic bacteria that works on those little soft-bodied caterpillars and such, like the cabbage moth caterpillars. I will say apply it carefully, because any caterpillar, this will harm any caterpillar, including swallowtails and monarchs and anything that maybe you're trying to help their population along. So I try not to use that because I don't want to harm the good guys. I would rather just handpick and maintain that way. But the way that the BT works is you will spray it on your Brassica plant. The caterpillar will munch, and then that bacteria will sort of shut down the caterpillar's ability to know if it is hungry or thirsty. So essentially the caterpillar ends up dehydrating from the inside out. That sounds really gross and really cruel to me. It seems like a much easier death if I just like pick it off and, you know, that way. But that's all personal choice. I'm not going to tell you one way or the other which method is the best for you, because you are your own gardener in your garden, so you're gonna know that a whole lot better. So one last way that maybe could be more on the prevention side of things and less on the maintenance side of things when it comes to those cabbage moths is considering putting companion plants in your growing spaces alongside those Brassica vegetables. So you could plant, just as an example, you could plant dill or parsley, thyme, sage, oregano, all those cooler temperature herbs. A rosemary is another one that you could plant in there. Not basil, that one is definitely not a frost hardy herb, but the other ones, those are all frost hardy to a degree, so you could get them planted in between your broccoli and cauliflowers and such. So considering planting some herbs in with your brassicas could help slow down the cabbage moth population from laying more eggs and creating more caterpillars within your plants. Just like in summer, basil helps repel hornworms away from tomatoes and peppers. In the fall and winter, some of those other herbs will help repel the cabbage moth. So you have netting, companion planting, hand picking, and then lastly, you can spray with that BT spray if you wanted to, if whatever you desire. If that's the easiest thing for you, then by all means. But that's going to be the last sort of maintenance task that you're going to handle in the month of September. As the temperatures continue to cool down, you will see less of those cabbage moths. But because North Texas has relatively mild winters, then there still could be the potential for cabbage moths all the way through December, January, and possibly even into February if we don't consistently see a lot of cold weather. Anyway, that is the September garden checklist. I'm going to include all of these items in the description box below so you can refer back to it if you need, or take screenshots of it, or whatever it is that you need to do in order to get yourself organized for checking things off of your list. But that's all I have for you today. If you found this monthly checklist helpful, please feel free to like, subscribe, and comment, and do all those different YouTube things, because it is greatly helping my channel, and I appreciate you all for all your support so far. But until next time, go find a way to get those garden manicures. Bye!